Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Blade and Trap Gambit nerfs in Wizard101. There's a lot of buffs and changes coming to spells, and alongside of it are a lot of nerfs coming to a lot of the advanced combat slash PvP spells. So I'll give you guys my opinions and thoughts about it essentially, and yeah, so we'll go from there. But if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Join Discord if you guys haven't. I think we're really close on hitting 700 members in the Discord, so regardless, I appreciate all you guys and I appreciate everyone that's been helping me create my content. It does mean a lot. But I'm on my myth currently for one specific reason: to talk about some cards. Those cards per se are actually going to be Jin, Scion, and Oni. Now, every school has these three cards. They'll either be an Oni for their school, a Jin for their school, and a Scion of their school, of course. Now, these are PvP spells and spells that you do use in advanced combat. Now, they are getting nerfed. Not all of them, just some of them. Now, those nerfs consist of the gambits that use traps or blades. For example, Ivan Storytime, which you do use this in a strat for, I believe, Crash, if I remember. You can use other stuff too, but for example, I just use this in Crash, and what it does is it'll clear 4 traps on the enemy, which whatever's on the top, and it'll do double the damage. So instead of doing 900, it'll do 1800. Now, with the release of the Nightmare coming out soon, a lot of these spells are getting nerfed. For example, the Ivan Storytime is going to be way less than what we think it is. I think I had Court make some images to give like a rough idea just for the purpose of the video, and here's a good example of what it could look like. Now, this isn't exactly what it's going to look like because the damage could be changed a tad bit more, but it's roughly going to be around a 1.4 multiplier or 1.5 depending how they skew the numbers. But this is like an example of what it could look like. Now, you're essentially just like removing one buff from the Ivan Storytime, and it's the same with the other ones, right? But we're just using Ivan Storytime as an example. Now, depending on how you view it, this can be a good or bad change, because the fact is that, hey, you are losing a buff. I feel like people are gonna be like, well, I'm losing a buff. Why am I doing less damage now? Now, this does affect PvP and advanced combat. This does affect raids. It doesn't affect boss rematches at the moment, because the fact is these are 120 spells. We haven't had boss rematches that are scaled to above 120. With the R2 rematches coming out later this year, the highest will go is 100, and the only spells we'll be able to use at 100 is either Jin or Oni. So the Scions are kind of out of questions. But depending on your school, we do have Jins and Onis that use Blade or Trap gambits. Now, if we look at my slides over here, ignore the top spells because some of the stuff is outdated. But if we look at the bottom spells, for example, Fire, they do have a Trap Jin. So this spell would be nerfed too. The damage would be skewed quite a bit. Go to the Ice one, Everwinter Oni will be receiving a nerf. That's one thing. Storm, you'll be getting Rain of Torrents being nerfed because it is a Blade Gambit. Myth will be getting its Ivan Storytime. And of course, Life will be getting its Primo Oni getting nerfed. And then if we move over to Death, Death will be losing damage on its Jin. And then Balance, I am still questioning this to if they are actually going to be nerfing the Balance spells. Due to the fact is because they use 2 blades and 2 weaknesses, and they use 2 shields and 2 traps. So I'm not too sure if they're going to be nerfing these. I feel like they shouldn't if they are, just because I don't really see these spells ever being used. Even in the raid, for example, the polymorphs, I've never seen somebody use a Duststorm Jin as Outlock. So I don't think these spells are going to get nerfed, but yeah. So yes, those are the spells that are getting nerfed, but there's also some buffs happening to some of these Scions. Like if we quickly check, we do have the Ice spell that's actually getting buffed. So Shield Gambits are actually getting buffed. Now, Kelvin is actually getting a 1940 damage. If we look at the actual Ice spell over here, it's 1705 at the last time I put this image in here. So eventually I'll update this image so it says 1940. But yes, Kelvin is getting a buff. Now if we look at Doom Oni is also getting a buff. So for example, if we go to the Death spell, look at Doom Oni, 1750 to now 1985, which is a big change. That's almost 2k if you think about it. And then lastly, the next spell that is getting buffed is Myth. Myth is getting its Jin buffed. So instead of it being 1850, it is 2100. That is still a big change. Now, to me, it's kind of out of the blue that they did something like this, due to the fact is that no one was expecting a shield buff to the gambits, the shield gambits getting buffed. Right now, how do I view this? Now, of course, for the raid and advanced combat, I'm gonna view this differently than PvP, because I always say in my videos, don't really do PvP, so I wouldn't be able to give you a good example for PvP. But from what I know is how Myth plays, and how they play is depending on if they do trap stack, they would go for a Scion, but if they have to and they switch sometimes and they just go for a Jin. Now, I feel like that might be a little bit more predominant here just because of the Jins are getting buffed. So we might see a little bit more Jins in PvP. Now, when it comes to advanced combat, if you're doing Kameka team, your Jin is still fine. Like, you're still going to be using your Jins in Kameka because, you know, you're allowed to use it there. Now, Dumoni and the other ones, I'm not too sure how that's going to work. Of course, all the other fights like Ixta, Otlok, and I believe Yatasha, because mainly those fights are either blade or weaknesses, or Yatasha is going to be hot or not, unless you do stoop, and then you just ignore it and go for a Jin. Or you also do is a Otlok where you do something else. Now, the reason why those strats work predominantly fine is because people are cosplaying. But with the nerf of cosplaying is that the cosplaying strat for the raids are going to be a tad bit different. People have been cooking up strats. I personally just been saying, like, people are just going to do fires and storms in the raid, just due to the fact is that because cosplaying, they're like allowed to cosplay every other school. Fire can cosplay basically any school other than Storm, and Storm can literally cosplay any school. But there might be like some numbers a bit skewed, as in like tossing in a support and then having 2 dual schoolers per fight, something like that. I feel like the strat's going to be roughly the same. It's just going to be adding another buff in reality. Now, depending on how people view that, I mean, I'll save that for another video regarding the raid. It might affect it quite a bit. So Ice and Myth, I mean, yeah, they are getting some buffs and nerfs. I think Myth is even getting nerfs to their Minotaur, and I believe their, I think, Hero of Chrysalis. Yeah, so these spells are getting nerfed. I think the trap is actually going to be lowered in percentage, and then the Hero of Chrysalis is going to have lower damage on it. Now, of course, mine is maxed out. Where is it? Yeah. So I don't know how drastic this 950 is or 930 is going to be. Are they just going to shred it to completely be like tier 1, or are they going to shred it even more? Because I feel like even at tier 1 it's still pretty strong. Now, there's that. So I don't know how I feel about this change per se. It's I think time will tell. I feel like it's way too early. I feel like a lot of people are going to be biased because of how they're trying to, you know, pursue the game. I feel like I've noticed that, right? We're going forward, and now we're going a little bit backwards in terms of the updates. But I have to give it a little bit. I really think I have to give it a little bit. Give it like a week after the Nightmare Dungeon. See how the raid is going to be. See how everything's going to be, to give you solid proof that, well, this update is terrible. I feel like everyone's just been saying the update's terrible, but we haven't even had the update. So right now, I feel like I'm just in this limbo state of just like, okay, well, this is getting buffed and this is getting nerfed. What does this mean for raids? Just add another buff. But cosplaying getting nerfed. So then what do? Do you just go to mono school, or do you just do something else? Or do you have fires still cosplay as other schools? Do you still have storms cosplay as other schools? You know? So it'll be interesting to see when it comes to that. Are people going to go back to 4-man strats? Are people going to go back to 3-man strats? Redbeard says it's just basically adapt. So I'm gonna give it a little bit before I say hard evidence that the raid is in shambles. I will probably make a video calling that the raids are in danger or something like that, but that will be for a different video. So overall, that's kind of my take right now. I'm kind of interested to see the Jins. I will try to use some of these shield gambits in the Nightmare Dungeon, but we'll just have to see how these cheats are in the Nightmare Dungeon. I'm kind of leaning towards different builds at the moment, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's a lot of waiting game. I feel like it's so early to tell what these are gonna be exactly when it comes to live realm, right? Even like the numbers I showed you, those are just like examples. Like the Scion number, like this one, we don't know if it's exactly going to be this one. This is just theoretical of what it could be, depending on how much percentage they want to nerf. But with the Jins and stuff that I did show earlier, these are actually shown on Rapid Stream, so it kind of just makes sense. All it is just that it's in more of a higher quality instead of stream quality, because you can just make cards on some websites and then you can just use those to show examples of. So there's that. But like I said, time will tell. I mean, Myth is getting its nerfs and buffs. I mean, they're getting nerfs to Minnow, Hero of Chrysalis, and then Scion, but they are getting that buff to the Jhin. I mean, the Onis are left alone, because if we look back on the slides, I mean, most of these Onis are like hots and dots, right? Or weaknesses. I don't think they're going to tweak anything regarding that. Like, Inferno Oni probably won't get touched. Bernies won't get touched. If we go over here, Iceburn Jhin is actually going to be kind of nice, not going to lie. Just because of how things are swaying towards. Because Everwinter Oni will get its nerf, but Iceburn Jhin will still gonna have the 835. I mean, yes, Kelvin's getting a buff, but depending on how you view it, Iceburn Jhin might be still pretty good. And then Storm, of course, Turmo Oni will still be good unless they for some reason change its damage value. It's still a really good card in the raid, and it's a really good card even outside of the raid. So there's that. And then I don't know with Thundering Jhin. I have yet to actually use this properly. Even in the North fight, like for Yatasha, I have yet to see like a reason to use Thundering Jhin. But maybe that time will shine, judging by how things are swaying. People might just pop out the Thundering Jhin, you know? So there's a lot of buffs and nerfs, but that's just my opinion so far. I think I just kind of have to wait and just see from there. Also, sorry about my voice, guys, because I kind of just woke up. So hopefully you guys didn't mind that. It's a pretty straightforward video, but there will be more videos later today. I want to talk about some other things in separate videos, of course. Today was mainly just, or this video is just more per se of blades and traps. There's also some other stuff happening, right, for ice, right? If we quickly go to ice, because I do want to talk about this before I actually forget. But if we quickly go over to my ice, wherever it's at, right here, there's also 2 other spells that are actually being changed for ice, which is interesting to see. If we quickly go over here and we go to my is it for the ice spells, if we look at Frost Beetle is actually getting a buff that are increasing the shield on it. So instead of a 65% shield, I think it might even be 70 or 75. I don't know exactly what the percentage might be, but it would be scary if this is like an 80 shield. I'm hoping it's not, but it's still, you're gambiting a shield to make the shield stronger. So that would be interesting to see. And then also, I don't know why, there we go. If we go to Colossus, the bottom path will actually be changed too. So this shield percentage will most likely be higher too. So instead of it being a 35 trap, who knows what they might do? They might be a 45 or even a 40 trap. And keep in mind, this isn't chromatic, so this will always do ice traps. So it's not like you can just use Colossus on other schools. I don't know how I would feel if Colossus was chromatic, like I can just use it on any other school, but it would be interesting to see. But at that point, it will just become a minnow, just instead of, yeah, it'll just become a minnow at that point. So we'll see what that would be entailing. I think that's about it when it comes to like spell changes. Yeah, Kelvin, Jhin, Dumoni, Frost Beetle, and Colossus, and then of course the nerfs of blades and traps. So interesting to see as a whole, but we'll still see what happens with these spells, give or take what the actual percentages are, but we'll know about the couple spells that I did show in the video. So that is it for me. Look out for all the other videos I'm going to post today. I'm going to be talking about like raids in a separate video. I think there's another raid video probably tomorrow that I have to upload. There's going to be a cosplaying video I have to talk about when it comes to like playing on a different school. So I got to talk about that, and then stat caps and PvE and advanced combat. So I got to talk about all those things in separate videos before the update rolls out. So I will be pushing out a lot of videos today, so be on the lookout for all those types of videos. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, join Discord, and appreciate everyone that's been joining, of course. So that is it, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.